You wake up when the light does, no alarm. There's nothing to set one to, and nobody's invented the concept. You're maybe 20 years old, give or take, because nobody is counting the years. Your body is lean and quick. Your teeth have never once touched sugar, and by the standards of almost everyone watching this, you are about to have one of the least busy days of any human alive on the planet right now. We get this wrong almost every time. When we picture the deep past, we picture a grind. People clawing at the dirt from sunup to sundown, one bad afternoon away from starving. And sometimes, in a hard season, in a bad place. That was true. But on an ordinary day, in a decent spot, roughly 15,000 years ago, the shape of your life looks almost nothing like ours. So, here's the question, and the answer is stranger than you'd think. What did ancient humans actually do all day? Let's follow you through it. The morning is slow. There's no reason to rush, because there's nowhere to be. Some of the adults will head out to find food, but not all of them. And not you, not today. On any given day, a good chunk of the camp just doesn't go. The old people don't go. The kids and the teenagers don't go. If you're past about 60, nobody expects you to bring back a single calorie ever again. And nobody thinks less of you for it. You've got what might be the world's first retirement plan. And it runs on nothing but the fact that people take care of each other. The ones who do head out aren't gone long. This is the part that broke a few brains when we finally measured it. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee went and lived with a group of hunter-gatherers in the Kalahari, and he did something nobody had bothered to do. He actually counted the hours. How long does it take to feed yourself out here, with no farms, no shops, no money? The answer came out to somewhere around 20 hours a week. 2, maybe 3 days of actual food getting, for the whole week. A lot of that food wasn't the dramatic stuff either. Forget the image of spearing a mammoth every night. The reliable calories came from gathering. Nuts, roots, fruit, whatever the land was handing out that month. In the Kalahari, it was largely one humble little nut, cracked open by the thousands. The hunting mattered, and when it worked, it was a feast and a story for weeks. But it wasn't the paycheck. The paycheck was walking out, filling a bag, and walking home before the afternoon got hot. And whatever came back got shared. Not out of sweetness exactly, but because that was the rule. Bring in a big animal, and you didn't own it. It moved through the whole camp, piece by piece, until it was gone. Some of these groups had customs built specifically to keep any one hunter from getting a big head about a good kill. They'd tease him, play it down, keep everybody level. There were no rich people out here. There literally couldn't be. You can't hoard meat in the sun, and a band that let one person hoard everything else wouldn't stay a band for long. Now, be honest with me. That 20-hour number is a little too clean. Later researchers pushed back, and they had a point. Once you count cracking all those nuts, fixing your tools, hauling water, keeping an eye on the children, the real work total climbs higher than 20. Fair enough. But even after you add all of it up, here's what's left standing. Hours. Real, open, unspoken for hours. Every single day. So, sit with that for a second, because this is where it starts to sting. You will probably spend more of your one life sitting in meetings than this person spent finding food. Your commute alone, just the getting there and getting back, the part where nothing actually happens, might out-total their entire work week. We didn't invent free time. We inherited an ocean of it, and then we spent the last 10,000 years quietly building a world that takes it back. Okay, so if you're not working, what are you doing with all those hours? Mostly, you're with people. Your whole world is a band of maybe 25 to 50 of them, and you are almost never out of arm's reach of another human being. You make things, but making things is social. You sit in a group, shaping a tool, and the shaping is really just the excuse for the talking. There's visiting. People are forever walking over to the next camp to see relatives, trade a little, stir up some gossip, find someone to marry. There are games, there's music, and there's a lot of just sitting, in the specific way we've almost forgotten how to do, where you are not waiting for anything and not reaching for anything. Your body's been moving all day without you ever once calling it exercise. There's no such word, because there's no version of your life where you sit still long enough to need it. The children? They mostly play. No school, no lessons, no one drilling them on anything. They learn the way kids have always actually learned, by hanging around adults doing real things, copying, failing, trying again, until one day the copying quietly turns into the real skill. A 5-year-old's whole job is to be a 5-year-old, out in a pack of other kids, for years. And here's a detail I love. You'd assume these people slept like the dead. Early to bed, 10 hours, no screens. They didn't. When researchers strapped trackers onto hunter-gatherers still living this way, the number came back at a little over 6 hours a night. Barely more than you get. But almost none of them had any trouble sleeping. In some of these languages, there isn't even a word for insomnia. They didn't sleep more. They just weren't lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the dark, running the same worry on a loop. Then the sun goes down, and something shifts. During the day, when people talked, it was mostly the boring stuff. Who's going where? Who did what? Who's annoyed with whom? Logistics and gossip, same as our group chats. But at night, around the fire, the conversation changed almost completely. It turned to stories. Somebody who died before your grandparents were born. A place over the hills you'll never see. Spirits, and where the world came from, and how to be a person in it. The firelight came on, and the imagination came on with it. That was the internet, the cinema, the church, and the bedtime story, all in one flickering circle. And everyone you loved was inside it. Now, I have to stop myself here, because it would be so easy to sell you a fantasy. This was not paradise. Let me be clear about the cost, because it was real. There was no medicine. A cut that we'd fix with a cheap tube of ointment could take your life. A hard winter or a dry year could empty a whole band. And the hardest one, the one there's no gentle way to say. A lot of children didn't make it. Watching a child die was something most adults simply expected to live through, more than once. If you made it through childhood yourself, you had a real shot at 60 or 70. But that, if was carrying an enormous amount of weight. You were never lonely, but you were also never alone. No privacy, no door to close. The band was everything, and if the band turned on you, there was nowhere else to go. So, no, I'm not telling you it was better. I'm telling you it was a trade. And it's worth looking straight at the trade, because we're the ones who made it. We took the deal, all of us, and it was a real deal. We bought safety, we bought medicine, and full bellies in February, and the fighting chance that our kids grow old. Those are not small things. Those might be the only things, but look at what we handed over at the counter. We gave away the ocean of time. We gave away the small, dense little world where you were known by every single face around you. And a lot of us traded, without ever being asked, our own quiet mind. The one that used to fall asleep without a fight. So, go back to the morning. You wake up when the light does. There's no alarm, there's nowhere you have to be, and the whole day in front of you is genuinely, completely your own. Most of it you'll spend within reach of people who would, without a second's hesitation, die for you. And, yes, measured in hours that were actually yours, it might have been a richer life than the one you're scrolling through right now.